if you have y by itself, we know it's slope-intercept form. If you have everything on one side of the equation, that's when we call it general form. Okay, general form has to equal 0. That's the key. Everything else is on the other side of the equation. So you have your x's, your y's, and this is just like a plus number, right? C means constant. It's just a number. There's no letters attached to it. Once you have everything equal to 0, there's 2 rules that you have to follow for it to officially be general form. The first rule is you're not allowed any decimals or fractions. Okay, we say that every number has to be an integer. I think it says that in here. Every number has to be an integer. All right, so that means no decimals. No fractions. And if you have decimals or fractions, then you're not technically in general form, and I'll teach you how to get into general. The second rule, after you've made sure that there's no fractions, no decimals, is that the a value, the number in front of the x, it has to be positive. The other ones can be negative, and that's fine. But a has to be positive. That's the other rule. I think it explains that underneath there, and talking about that, but I just like to write out the rules right there so it's nice and clear for us. So, general form. Everything's on one side and it equals 0. Once we have that, we follow our rules. No decimals, no fractions, a must be positive. Seems easy peasy, right? If they don't call it general form, you might see it, or if you have a tutor or another teacher talking to you about it, they might call it standard form. I don't use standard form because in future years, standard form means something else. So I try to never use that terminology. But if you do have like a tutor or somebody and they're talking about standard form, that's what they mean, general form. Same idea. We're going to look at these questions. We're going to convert all of them into general form. If you look, you notice that all 3 of these things are actually in slope-intercept form, right? This is y by itself, y by itself, y by itself. These are all slope y-intercept form. We're going to convert them to general form. The first thing we have to do, get everything on one side of the equal sign. The easiest way to do that is to subtract y from both sides. When I subtract y from both sides, the left side will give me 0 equals 0 equals, we still have 5x over here. There were no y's over there, so we just go minus y. And then we go minus 8. This is now general form because it equals 0, right? I moved everything to one side. Once you have that set up, you're going to check your 2 rules. First rule, no decimals, no fractions. Looking at that, no decimals, no fractions. Life's good. Second rule, the a value must be positive. A is the number in front of x, this guy. That's a. Is it positive? Yeah, it's positive 5. This is general form. Awesome. Let's look at B. So it says convert to general form. This thing is not equal to 0, so we're going to make it equal to 0 by subtracting y from both sides. Y minus y will give me 0 equals 2 over 3x minus y plus 7. So I'll give my 0 equals. convert to general form, I got it equal to 0. That's general form. Okay, so that's like, all right, I'm there. Now I check my rules. No fractions, no decimals. If I'm looking at that, that thing's for sure got a fraction, right? 2 divided by 3. So we have to get rid of that fraction somehow. The way we get rid of that fraction is by taking whatever number is on the bottom, in our case 3, and multiplying everything by 3. When you multiply everything by 3, and you're going to do it to both sides, it looks like this. 3 times 0, 3 times 2 divided by 3. 3 times the invisible 1 in front of the y, and 3 times the 7 on the end. Then we calculate it. 3 times 0 is going to be 0. Equals. In your calculator, if you ever want to do something like this, you go 3 times 2, so the numerators go together, and then you divide it by 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. You could also look at this and visually see that the 3's will cancel, and you get 2x. The y value, there's an invisible 1 in front of that. So 3 times 1 would be negative 3y. And the 3 times 7 is plus 21. You'll notice once we multiply everything by that denominator, the number on the bottom, we no longer have any fractions, we no longer have any decimals. That's perfect. Our last rule is make sure the number in front of x is positive. It is. It's positive 2. That means this is my solution. Awesome. For the record, in math, you can't just multiply things like free and willy-nilly. There are rules. So when we multiplied by 3, the reason we were allowed to do that is because we did it to both sides the equal sign. Right? And I say it's like a balancing act. So whenever you're doing math, you need to balance things out. Right? The same way we subtract y from one side, we also subtract it from the other. So it's balanced out. Same idea. If I multiply this side by 3, I have to multiply that side by 3 to keep it balanced. And that's why we're allowed to do that. Awesome. Last one. A little bit trickier. So we look at that thing. We want general form. General form is equal to 0, is not equal to y. So I subtract y from both sides. That gives me 0 equals negative 1 over 4 x minus y plus 3 over 5. So first things first, always make it equal 0. Second thing is getting rid of the denominators, right? The fractions and the decimals. This has 2 fractions in it. So if you look at this, I have a 4 on the bottom and I have a 5 on the bottom. To get rid of both numbers, you want to multiply by the lowest common multiple. That's like throw back the unit 1. It's a long time ago. So you want to find the smallest number that 4 and 5 can both multiply and become. So for instance, 4 can become 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, so on and so forth. 5 is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, so on and so forth. You want to find the lowest number they both multiply to become. In our case, 20. Right? That's the number you want to multiply everything by. So we're going to multiply everything by 20. Again, when you're putting this in your calculator, the first one is 20 times 0. That's easy. It's just 0. Equals. When you're doing a fraction like that, the 20 multiplied by the number on the top and then divided by the number on the bottom. So you would go 20 times 1 divided by 4. And you would get negative 5x. The next one is 20 times the invisible 1, so that's negative 20y. The last one is 20 times 3, which is 60, and divided by 5, which I believe is 12. Awesome. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. Sheet that. Awesome. We effectively have created general form where it's equal to 0. We got rid of all of our decimals, all of our fractions. The last step. It's the one people forget because it's kind of minuscule at the very end of things. The number in front of x has to be positive. This one is not positive. It's negative. So the way that we're going to deal with that is we're going to change all the symbols. What we're mathematically doing is we're multiplying everything by -1. And that'll change every single symbol. What we do practically is we literally just go and change every symbol. This is now +5. This is now +2. Well, that's good. And this is now a -12. My final answer would be +5x plus 20y minus 12. I don't have room to rewrite it. That's general form. Converting into general form. It's not too tricky. It just takes a lot of practice to remember the rules. Awesome. Now we're going to convert the other way. So we're going to take general form. We're going to convert into slope-intercept form. So if you look at class example 2, this is slope and y-intercept of the graph of the following lines. You got 2 lines here. The best way to find the slope and the y-intercept is to convert. You're going to take an equation and you're going to convert it to slope y-intercept form. It's the easiest way to do it. When we look at slope y-intercept form looks like this. Y equals mx plus b, so we talked about earlier this morning. The most important trait is that y is by itself. And that's how I know I'm in slope-intercept form. Y is isolated, it's all by itself. So if I'm looking at this guy, I need to get y by itself. To get y by itself, in this case, I think it's easier to just move the y's to the other side. To move the y's to the other side, I would do the opposite of minus 5y, so I would add 5y to both sides. Now, cancel it over here, and then I'm left with 2x plus 25 equals 5y. Now got y on the other side by itself. However, we don't want to fall for that trick where we think this is complete. Slope y-intercept has nothing in front of the y. There's nothing there. We currently have a 5 there. So you need to get rid of that 5. The best way to get rid of that 5 is to do the opposite operation. Two numbers beside each other means multiply. The opposite of multiply is divide by 5. And what you do to one thing, you do to them all. Your final answer now is 2 over 5x plus 5 equals y. That is now slope y-intercept. Awesome. The question didn't ask for slope y-intercept form, did it? It asked, determine the slope in y-intercept. The best way to find the slope in y-intercept was to create slope-intercept form. However, we've not answered our question yet. The question was, what's the slope? Now that I'm in slope y-intercept form, I can answer the question. Slope y-intercept form tells me 2 over 5 is the slope, so m equals 2 over 5. And This y-intercept is at 5. Oh. Now I've answered my question. Right? I've answered my slope and I've answered my y-intercept. That's not as y-intercept question. All right, try B. So see if you can convert that thing into slope y-intercept form. And then state the slope and state the y-intercept. All right. Figuring out the slope and y-intercept of this thing. Best way to figure out the slope and y-intercept is to get in the slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form has y by itself. This thing does not have y by itself. So we are going to move the y's so they're on the other side of the equal sign all by themselves. I do that by subtracting 2y. That leaves you with 6x minus 15 equals negative 2y. Wonderful. That is still the slope-intercept form. You're getting closer, right? The y's are now by themselves, but there's a number attached to the y. You need to get rid of that number. You're not going to add 2 to both sides. Right? This is multiplication. This is negative 2 times y. To get rid of that negative 2, you have to divide everything by negative 2. That's probably the biggest one that people would try to add to. Right? They see the subtraction sign and they think subtract. The opposite of subtract is add. Instead, you need to recognize that this is multiplication because there's no symbol in between the number and the letter. Awesome. When you write out your answer, 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3x. Negative 15 divided by negative 2 is plus. You can leave it as a fraction, which is 15 over 2, or you can convert it to a decimal, which is 7.5. Not that you would know because my fingers connecting all the dots. Let's try again. And it equals 5. You now have slope y-intercept form. You can now answer the question. The question was, what's the slope, what's the y-intercept? This is my slope, 3, negative 3. And this is my y-intercept, positive 7.5. Fantastic. So that's converting the other direction, right? Converting into slope y-intercept form, which is a useful form for us. Awesome. Class example 3. I've been struggling with the best way to solve number 3 because there is 2 different ways. Way number 1 would be to convert these things into slope y-intercept form. So it says the lines, picture the line and picture the line, have the same y-intercept. If they have the same y-intercept, then if I convert them both into slope y-intercept form, I can just compare their b values and make them the same. So that's one way to do the question. That's the approach I think we're going to take. There is a second approach. The second approach is calculating the y-intercept of each of them. How can you calculate the y-intercept? Go back to last year. What do all y-intercepts have in common? They all have x values of 0. So you could technically go to this equation, change x to be 0, and then solve for y. And that would also be your y-intercept. And just like last unit, you could do it algebraically. I don't think that's the intention of the question, or probably what's best for us for this unit, but I mean, it would work. So as long as you have a mathematical understanding, you could do that. What we're going to do is we're going to take this equation, the first one, we're going to convert it to slope y-intercept form. When we convert it to slope y-intercept form, we'll know the y-intercept. It'll be really obvious to us. So I'm going to add 4y to both sides, plus 4y. When I do that, I get 3x plus 8 equals 4y. My y-intercept is not 8, because I'm not in slope-intercept yet. I got that pesky little 4 attached to the y. I need to get rid of it, so I divide everything by 4. I now have 3 over 4x plus 2 equals y. That's as good as it's going to get. That means when I look at the first line, the blue one, what's my y-intercept? What's my y-intercept of this blue line? It's 2, right? The b value. That's my y-intercept. If they have the same y-intercept, that means I should be able to take this thing, and I should be able to change it into slope-intercept form, and it should have the same b value, same y-intercept. Let's try it. Looking at this thing, I need to get y by itself. It has negative ky. I need to get that to the other side. The way I can move that to the other side is just like treating k as a letter, or sorry, a number. So if I had negative 4y, I would just add 4y. If I had negative ky, I would just add ky to the other side. That leaves me with 5x minus 6 equals ky. That's not slope-intercept form yet. To get slope-intercept form, you have to have y by itself. That means I have to get rid of this k. You would get rid of that k the same way you would get rid of a number. Right? This is just k times y. The opposite of k times would be k divide. And we divide everything by k. That leaves me with 5 over k x minus 6 over k equals y. The question is to determine the value of k so that these things had the same y-intercept. The y-intercept of my blue line was plus 2. The y-intercept of my red line over here is negative 6 divided by k. You get to choose what k is, but it has to make so it's plus 2. You might be able to just visually look at it and be like, okay, if I want to get to 2, then it's 6 divided by negative 3, and that would change it to positive 2. If you're not confident in just visually seeing it, then make these two things equal each other. 2 equals negative 6 over k. And then do your cross multiplying and dividing. Right? Kind of like what we did with trig. So you want to get k by itself, you'd have to multiply k up here and divide 2 over here. You get k equals negative 6 over 2, which is just negative 3. That would be an example of one of the harder questions we could give you with general. Okay, that's a pretty tricky question. Takes a little bit of outside the box thinking. Awesome. Last one. Second last one, I think. Yeah, there we got that multiple choice question. So it says, which of the following lines is or are perpendicular to this line? Let's start with the term perpendicular. We talked about that. What does perpendicular mean? It's x, right? So it means it's making a slope that would cross at a 90. We call that the slope is a negative reciprocal. I'm just going neg REC. Negative reciprocal. It's a complete opposite. Different symbol, flip the fraction. Negative reciprocal. So if we want to figure out which one of these are perpendicular, this guy, we need to figure out the slope of this thing. It's the only way to do it. So we're going to figure out the slope of, let me try to color code it, this one first. To get the slope of that, what form would be useful for us? I heard somebody say, SlopeIntercept form, right? SlopeIntercept form would be useful. This is currently general form. To get that into SlopeIntercept form, I'm going to add 2y to both sides. Plus 2y. Plus 2y. That leaves me with 4x plus 9 equals 2y. That's almost SlopeIntercept form, right? There's that 2 attached to the y, so you have to divide everything by 2. That gives me 2x plus 4.5 equals y. The slope of this line is 2. Perpendicular to 2. What would perpendicular to 2 be? It'd be negative 1 over 2. Perfect. Change the symbol, flip the fraction. Remember that's like an invisible 2 divided by 1. So we flip that fraction from 1 divided by 2. Our goal is to figure out which one of these lines is perpendicular. So that means we need to figure out which one has a slope of negative 1 over 2. That's our goal. I'll do the first one with you, then I'll let you do 2 and 3 by yourself. So if I want to see if this thing's perpendicular, has a slope of negative 1 over 2, I need to get the SlopeIntercept form. I need to do this one in yellow. I need to subtract 3y to get the SlopeIntercept form. That gets me the y all by itself. 6x minus 1 equals negative 3y. Then I need to divide everything by negative 3. When I do that, 6 by negative 3 is negative 2x. Negative 1 divided by negative 3, I would just do that as a fraction. That's plus 1 over 3 equals y. Is the yellow line perpendicular to my blue line? It is not, right? When I compare the slopes, my slope of the yellow line is negative 2. I'm looking for a slope of negative 1 over 2. This thing is not perpendicular. Because the slope is not reciprocal. Alright, try 2 and 3 on your own. At the very least, see if you can convert them to SlopeIntercept form. See if you can get y by itself. I'll give you a few minutes. Let's do this. So, I'm going to do the middle one. It's going to be my red line. You need to try to see what the slope was so you can check to see if it's perpendicular, right? Negative reciprocal. To do that, you had to subtract 2y from both sides to get it by itself. So subtract 2y, 2y. That gave me x minus 12 equals negative 2y. You then had to divide all the coefficients by negative 2. When you're dividing everything by negative 2, oh boy, that was going to be quite a bit, right? Negative 2. Remember that there's an invisible 1 1 in front of that x. So if I was to write this out now, rewrite it after I divided by -2, this is 1 divided by -2, like that. Then we have plus 6 equals y. Is the red line perpendicular to the blue line? Perpendicular means has a slope that's negative reciprocal. We were looking for a slope of -1/2. This is -1/2. The negative's in a different spot, but negatives can float, right? They can go out front, they can go to the top, they can go to the bottom. Negatives can kind of move around, it doesn't change the number. This is perpendicular. Awesome. The third one, we're going to do in purple. If I look at that, right now it's in general form. I need to get the slope y-intercept form, so I'm going to subtract 10y from both sides. You technically could have also moved the x's to the other side, no, it would work the same way. Okay, this gives me x equals -10y. And I'm going to divide everything by -10. Now, your fraction is 5 divided by 10. We want to simplify fractions, right? -5/10 or 5/10, same idea. Change that into a decimal, it'll be -0.5. Hit the math button, hit the fract button, and it'll reduce it for you to become -1/2x equals y. This thing is also perpendicular. That says it is. Those mixed fractions, like those fractions that aren't reduced, those are tricky. People look at that and they go, nope, 5/10, that's not 1/2, done. Remember that fractions can be reduced, so maybe double check things. Or change them all to decimals. If it's the same decimal, then you're good. If you're looking at this equation, just for fun, the purple one, this is slope-intercept form. What's the y-intercept for that purple? Yeah, so your signal entity. It's 0. Right? If there's no b value, it's because it's +0, but we would never write +0. So the y-intercept of that is 0. Awesome. Class example 5. Write the equation of a line which is perpendicular. Perpendicular means negative reciprocal slope. Perpendicular to this thing. And has the same intercept as this thing. When you see a question that says write an equation, or it says determine an equation, the only type of equation that you can actually build, like out of nowhere and just create it yourself, is always in slope-intercept. Always. You can never create an equation in general form. You can only convert an equation into general form. Right? So when you see write the equation or determine the equation, that means make something in slope y-intercept form. That means you need to find an m value and a b value. To find the m and the b, you're going to reread your question, and it'll give you hints on where each one is. Write the equation of a line which is perpendicular to this, underlined in purple, is how we're going to find our slope. We want one that's perpendicular to this guy. So let's find the slope of this purple one. If we find the slope, then we'll have the slope of our new line. So, look at this purple guy. I have 2x plus 5y minus 7 equals 0. I need to minus 5x from both sides. That gives me 2x minus 7 equals -5y. I subtracted my 5y to both sides. I'm almost in slope by intercept form. I just have to get this negative 5 away, so I divide both sides by negative 5. That gives me my new equation of negative 2 over 5 x plus 7 over 5 equals y. The slope of this purple line is negative 2 over 5. We want to be perpendicular to it. Perpendicular means change the symbol, flip the fraction. Our slope is going to be positive 5 over 2. Negative and negative. Yeah. That purple line just helped us get our slope for our new line. Negative reciprocal, change the symbol, flip the fraction. Awesome. Next part, we need to figure out a b value. It says, and has the same y-intercept as this one. If you want the same y-intercept, you figure out the y-intercept of this thing. I would change that into slope-intercept form. First thing I'm going to do is subtract y to the other side. That gives me 2x minus 6 equals negative y. It subtracted y from the other side. That thing is still not slope-intercept form. The reason it's not is because there's a negative in front of the y. We need to get rid of that negative. It's really a negative 1, right? It's an invisible 1 there. So we divide everything by negative 1. Two divided by negative 1 is negative 2x. Negative 6 divided by negative 1 becomes plus 6. Negative divided by negative becomes a positive. And then negative y divided by negative 1 becomes positive 1. Sure. Our y-intercept is positive 6. Because we want to have the same y-intercept. You now have an m and a b value. You can now create an equation. My equation is y equals 5 over 2x plus 6. I think those are the hardest questions here. That's pulling a lot of information to just create one equation. You for sure will get questions like this, okay? 100%. You'll get your assignments next week. There will for sure be questions like that on your assignment. Your tests and quizzes, there's going to be questions like that. Okay. We've done a couple now. So we did this one today. We did, I think, 2 yesterday. Same idea. Awesome. This last question is a good test question. It's actually a very good example of what a test question could look like. So it says a student made the following statements about the line of the equation 2y equals 5x plus 12. Here's the 3 statements. Statement 1, the line has a slope of 5. Statement 2, the line is parallel to this line. Statement 3, the line passes through negative 2, 1. We have to decide which statements are true. So which of the above statements is such are true. I would just go through each statement and see if it's true and check it off on your own. That's what I would do. Then I would take my answer and be like, oh, okay, number 1 and 3 are true. And then I would check to see if that's actually one of the options. If it's not, then I made a mistake. Right? But I don't even look at the options on a multiple choice test. I try to answer the question like I don't know the answers. Then I check if my answer is the same. It's the best way to do a multiple choice test. It's like having the answer key in front of you. If you made a mistake, you go back and you do the whole process again. Awesome. Let's start with statement 1. The slope line has a slope of 5. To figure out the slope, what form would we want to be in? Slope by intercept. This thing, not slope by intercept. There's a little 2 in front of it. If you didn't get rid of that 2, it looks like the slope is 5. However, there's a 2 there. So you have to divide everything by 2. That gives you y equals 5 over 2x plus 6. The slope is actually 5 over 2, not 2. Statement 1 is false. Statement 2. The line is parallel. Parallel means same slope. So the line is parallel to this thing. I don't know the slope of that thing. I need to get that into SlopeIntercept form to even be able to compare it. So I'm going to add 4y to both sides. That gives me 10x plus 13 equals 4y. And I'm going to divide everything by 4. That gives me 10 over 4 x plus 13 over 4 equals y. We were looking for something that's parallel to the purple line. If you look at their slopes, they currently are not the same. 5 over 2 and 10 over 4 do not look alike. I think the best way to do it is to compare their decimals or reduce the fractions. 10 over 4 can reduce. If you put it in your calculator, it equals 2.5, and you hit math frac, it'll tell you it's 5 over 2. If you put the purple one in your calculator, 5 over 2 equals 2.5. They both have the same decimal value. That means they are the same. It means they are parallel. Statement 2 is true. And statement 3, something we haven't done much of. It says the line passes through -2, 1. What that means is that if you took this point and you put it into the equation for x and y, then both sides of the equal sign would equal each other. That's what it means to pass through somewhere. It means that these would create a balanced equation if you put them in. So let's test that. We'll take our x value -2, we'll take our y value 1, and we'll put them into the equation. So I now have 2 times 1 equals 5 times -2 plus 12. So I took x, took y, I put those values in. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. I know I'm going to lose my top, but that's okay. You'll be able to see what's going on. If that line actually has that point, then both sides of the equal sign will equal each other. 2 times 1 is 2 equals. I put 5 times -2 in my calculator plus 12, it equals 2. Both sides equal each other. That means that is a point on my line. Statement 3 is true. That means 2 and 3 are true. My answer is C. 2 and 3 are true. Fantastic. You're going to get a lot of time